So we'll start with working on charts today. So creating a chart object. Now how are we going to create charts? So let me prepare the sheets for that first. Okay. So through code, how are we going to insert a chart? We'll see that. So right click, insert module. I'm also going to rename these sheets for convenience sake. I'll just say WKS data. I want even the code name of the sheet to be same. Okay. So now this module is about creating charts. Chart object. Chart is also an object. We are working on it. We are still in that chapter of working on objects. So today we'll be working on charts and pivot tables both through the code. I'll give you with examples. Mod charts. So to create a chart, I'm writing this macro, a simple one. To create a chart, let's say new chart. Suppose you want to create it on WKS chart, let's say. You provide the sheet name. Just say WKS chart dot chart objects dot add. So this is the code. For adding, again you will have to provide the left and say left. So this is the position of the chart on that particular sheet. Say 100. Next, say width. This is the width of the chart that you're trying to set. Let's say 350. Next is top. That is also the position. So here I'll say 200 and height. So these parameters are very similar to your shape parameters. While inserting a shape also we had something similar to write. So let me run this. You can see a blank chart has been inserted on the sheet that we gave. So WKS chart, and so it is taking the distance of the point 200 points from the top and 100 points from left. The width is 350 and height I have given as 225. So that's how a blank chart is given here. Now let's see how to rename this chart. So we have this chart already. I want to rename it. So I'll just delete this part. I'll say name chart, name a chart. For this, I'm going to take a variable to store this chart. And so we are trying to assign a data type to this object. And we are going to use this particular variable to work on the object that we have taken. I'll just say dim and obj chart. It's an object, so I'm giving obj as the prefix and say chart object. As chart object. Next, since it's an object type, I have to use set keyword and then say obj chart equals. So when we are giving this as an input to a variable, or let's say some other function, you should make sure the parameters are given in brackets. So I have the chart set to obj chart variable. So using this, I'll say the name of the chart should be equal to, I'll say my chart. Now if you run this, it will insert a chart and it would have also renamed it. You can see the name of the chart here in the name box. So next, how to delete this? So you just have to use the name, that's it. I have anyways renamed it. I'll use the same chart to be deleted. Delete the chart. Again, I'm going to perform the same thing. Obj chart as chart object. It is still a chart object. It's not a chart because we have not assigned anything to it. We have not assigned any source data to it. Okay. So I want to delete it now. Set obj chart. So we already have the chart existing. So I'm not going to add. I'll just assign the chart which is there in the sheet to it. Set chart objects. You have to provide the name of the chart. You have to provide the name of the chart. So next, just give the chart or variable name and say dot delete. So now when you execute this, you can see the chart is deleted. So these are the basic operations that we did. Now we did not see anything assigned to that chart. So we'll see that how to give that. So I'm going to show you how to dynamically assign the source data and also how to dynamically change the chart type. So we'll see both. For that I have to first prepare the data. I'll make use of the same data, let's say. Let me give it straight away. So this is for the product name. And I'm going to provide sales over here. The same thing, I use it for, let's say, profit. And this for unit sale maybe. I'm just giving you a simple example over here how you can assign different source data to the same chart and see different data dynamically. You are utilizing the same chart for seeing different data there. So this can be achieved using the VBA code. So here I'll say sample 1001. Then let's take 5 products from here. And sales I'll give within the range of, say, 20,000 to 1 lakh. And paste it as values. So next, the same products, I'll create a copy of it. So here I'm talking about the profit that we made. So this can be in percentage. So let's say this is the profit percentage I have got. and I'll give the range. Let's say we use rand here, and I'll change it to percentage. So we simply got something like this. And the next one, so we should also make sure it is kept as values so that it doesn't keep changing always. And unit sale, I'll take this rand between. I give these of, let's say, from 100 to 500. Copy and paste it as values. Now for these three, I want to insert a chart here. So this is the data that I have. So I'll cut this. I'll put it a little far away, let's say. So here I want to display the chart. So right at this point. So now let's add it. Let's go back. So I want to dynamically assign to it. So what I'll do, so we know how to insert a chart now. What we could do is just assign that chart. Assigning the source data is what we require. I'll take some blank chart. I'll keep it here. For this chart, I'll rename it as OBJ new chart. That's the name I provide. So I want to create it this way. Using the developer tab, I want a drop down. So I'll get that. And to this drop down, I want to give whether it is sales, profit percentage, or unit sale. So that's the input that I want to provide. It's a format control. The input range you could also type. This is sales, profit percentage, and units. And the cell link, I just take it in this cell. Or let's take it somewhere over here. It's better. It is asking for a list only. Anyways, you could just type it here and assign the same list to it. And say sales, profit percentage, and unit sale. So these are the three things. Just say right click, format control. So for this, you can give the list that we gave now as an input. I want these to be displayed in the drop down that I have provided. And to take the cell link, I'll just give right on top of this. Okay. Now based on the selection that I do in the drop down, you can see the index of that particular value that I have selected. I have selected the second item in the list, so that's what it is displaying here. Now this number I'm going to utilize in my programming part. And I also want to change the chart type. So for that, I'll just take option button and I provide it here. So let's say I want a pie chart, column chart, and a line chart. I'll choose that. I'll name it as line chart, and this one as pie chart, and this one as column chart. You could add more if you want. So here I have taken the basic charts that we want to see. I'll remove the grid lines so now it looks clear. See, if I choose sales in this drop down, it should take this data to assign to the chart. So based on the drop down selection, the data given over here has to change. The chart has to be assigned with these different data that we have provided. And based on the selection that I give in this option button, I want the chart type also to change. So let me assign format control for this, and I'll provide a cell link, let's say somewhere far away. So over here in Q3 I'll provide it. So this is for the chart type. And this is for the source type. Source is the data source. So next we'll go here in Visual Basic. See, we'll provide that here. Dynamically assign source data to charts. So we'll start with it. Sub dynamic chart, I'll name it as dynamic chart macro. And we require variables like this, dim. So this is with the source. I have to write two different macros to assign to the drop down and also to this particular option button. Because when I choose this, the chart type has to change. But when I choose this, the source data has to change. So I'm going to write two different macros to assign to these objects. So dynamic chart source, I'll name it as chart source. And here I'll give this. So dim RNG data. RNG data is the source data that we want to assign to the chart. And it is of range type. You provide this. And next is chart object dim obj chart as chart. So this time it is chart only. We haven't declared it as chart object because we are going to assign data to it. Next thing is source type dim int s type as integer. So based on the number that we get after choosing the drop down value, the source type has to change. So I'm going to take that cell value here. So next we will set the chart that we have already inserted to this variable, and it's wks chart dot chart objects. So within this I have to give the name of the chart that I have. So this is the name that we have provided, and say dot chart. Next is source type int s type is equal to, so we have given the source type, the number that we get from the chart sheet over here. This number is going to be considered there, O3. And this is dot range O3 dot value. So now based on the source type that we have selected, the range data will be decided now. So I'll say if int s type, you could also use a select case here. I'm just showing this. If it is equal to 1, then RNG data, I have to set the RNG data. See, I have to set the RNG data equals, so WKS chart dot range of. So you have to provide the cell from where it is starting and use this current region property. So for 1, it means it is sales. So for sales, the data is starting from E5. I'll give E5. Let me go here and choose E5 over here. So this data has to be considered. The next is else if int s type, if it is equal to 2, then see, don't forget to give else if here. So if you again give if, it is an error. So check for these things. Ramya, I saw your program yesterday. You have missed this else if. So you just change it there.
Okay, thank you.
RNG data equals WKS chart dot range. So the next one is starting at, so I think it is H5 and the next one is K5. So this is for H5 dot current region. Else the last one, we are going to make use of the same line and we'll just change the range to K5 and just say end if. After we have decided on the range data that we want to take, we have to set it to the chart now. So to set it to the chart, call the chart variable and say set source data as range RNG data. Whatever is given to range data, that has to be assigned to the chart. Now this particular macro, I'm going to give it to this drop down that we have. You can see that here. Right click on it. I'll assign macro to this and say dynamic chart source. So based on this selection, you can see the profit percentage is being displayed and unit sale. So we have not written for the chart type, change in chart type, we'll write it for that as well. So currently you can see the data, different data is being taken. Sales, this for profit percentage, and this for unit sale. Now let's write it for changing the chart type. So very similar to this one, only thing is I'm going to change this part of the code. I'll create a copy of this to save time. Okay, this is to dynamically change chart type and say sub dynamic chart type. So we can take it till here. See, now this source type, I want to change it to chart type. And for chart type, the cell value is Q3. So you can check here. So in this sheet, if you check, chart type is in Q3. So whatever number is present in Q3, that is going to decide the chart type. So if it is 1, it is going to show column. If it is 2, it's going to show pie. And if it is 3, it has to be the line chart. Now let's get back to the macro here. So here I'll say if intc type is equal to 1, then see it has to decide obj chart dot chart type is equal to. So you have all the chart types present here. So you will have to choose which chart that you want to display. So I want a column, clustered column chart. So I'll give this else if int c type, if it is equal to 2, then I want to display pie chart. So I'll say chart type equals Excel pie. And the last one is obj chart dot chart type equals Excel line, and we'll end it with this. So this is it. So now let me assign this macro to them. Assign macro dynamic chart type. Right click. So now when I click on it, it is already clustered column. So let me choose pie. Line chart, pie chart, and column chart. See, I also want to give data labels to these series that I have. For that, you can again give write in this program, just say obj chart dot apply data labels. Okay. So now if you just see here, you will be able to see the data labels as well. And if you change the source here, and that is going to change here. Is it clear? Is it clear to all of you? Do you have any doubts? Are you able to hear me? Do you have any doubts in this part of the code?
No, Vidya, it's clear.
Okay. So we first insert a chart, we try to rename it, we try to delete it. So I also show you how to assign data to it dynamically and also change the chart type. So these are the things that we can perform using the chart object. So the next object that I want to display to you is pivot table. So let me insert a module for it. I'll rename it as mod pivot. Okay. The pivot, so to use a pivot object, you need to have a data ready. And on that data, we are going to insert a pivot. So there are few things, special things included in the pivot object while using it. So I'll be telling you. Just give me 1 second. Yeah. Sorry guys, there was some problem with the microphone. So that's the reason I stopped in between. So now let's write a macro to assign pivot table to the data that we have currently. So let's go back to the VB editor. See over here, to insert any pivot table, there are two things that has to be taken care. That is the pivot data that we already have it, and pivot cache. See, while inserting a pivot table, there will be a memory kept aside only for operating this pivot tables. That is known as pivot cache. You have to initiate it first, and in that pivot cache, all the data that we have selected to insert a pivot table will be stored. That's how you keep, whenever you refresh the pivot tables, even the reports will change in it. Okay, so this pivot cache has to be initiated. So we'll start off with it. The sub get pivot. I'll just give this. And over here, I'll first declare variables to store the data first. Rng data as range. So we are going to take the data from the WKS data sheet. And next, I'm going to declare a variable for pivot cache. Let's say p cache as pivot cache here. And next is pivot table itself. So p table as pivot table. So these are the variables that we require. So next, we also have to write a line of code to clear all the previously inserted pivot tables so that it doesn't get clashed with the code that we have written. Every time we run this, we should make sure the previously applied pivot table is removed. It is cleared. So for that, I'll take another sheet where I'm going to insert it. I'll name it as WKS pivot. I'll rename the code name of that particular sheet as well. So let's take that here. I'll say WKS pivot dot cells dot clear. Say cells is used to select all the cells within that sheet. So it will choose the entire sheet at once. That's the advantage of using cells here. So it will clear everything. Next is to set the data part. So it is there in the WKS data. So we are going to take it from there. So WKS data dot range of. I'm going to use the current region property again. Let's take the cell value. So it is B3. So I should say B3 current region. So that is the data part. Next thing is we have to assign to pivot cache and pivot table now. I'll say set pivot cache or p cache is equal to this workbook dot pivot caches. So I'm initializing it. So currently there is nothing kept in the current workbook's pivot cache. So I have to create it. And the kind of input that I'm providing is an Excel database. I'm going to choose this. There are other things as well. So here it is an Excel database, so I'll choose that. And that is stored in RNG data, so I'll use that here. Next, set p table. Pivot table has to be initiated. So that can be done using the pivot cache that we already have. And here I'll say create pivot table. And within this, I'll say where it has to be created. You'll have to provide the destination of the table. So I'll say wks pivot dot range of. So you will have to provide the cell where you want to see the pivot table. I'll just say C5. That's where I want to insert it. And what should be the name of the pivot table? After inserting, you can say pivot table. I'll just give this way. So this is going to create a blank pivot table. It should be a comma. Okay. So next is getting the fields. See, till here, whatever lines you used, so this is going to create a blank pivot table. That is, there will be the data is considered, but you have not set anything in the row field, page field, and column field. Until and unless you provide this, the pivot table will be blank. You have to choose the fields in order to show it in the pivot table report. So that we are going to do it now. I'll have to say p table dot pivot fields. So what are the fields that you want to choose? So here I have region, category, ship mode, sales, and profit. So I want to provide in the page filter, I want to provide the region, and in the row, in rows, I want to see the categories, and in the field, in the column field, I would like to see ship mode, and in the data field, I would like to see the values that is there in the sales. So I'll just choose that, say region dot orientation, where you want to orient it. Is equal to, we'll say Excel page field. So next you'll have to just choose the same thing and change the column name here. So it will take a different column name and where you want to provide it. I'll say row field, and in the row field I would like to see category, and the next is Excel column field, and over here I would like to see ship mode. And the last one that I take here is the data field. Data field has to be provided to any column which has got numbers in it. It is going to summarize. For that purpose, we are going to use it here. It will be usually column with numbers. If you choose a column with text, it will only provide you count, nothing else. So let us run this. So you can see here in pivot this thing, you have a pivot table created. So within the page filter, you have the region, and in column field we have ship mode, in row field we have category, and in values field we have sales. So you can choose a different column if you want. So this is how pivot table is inserted using the macros. So any doubts in this part? Any doubts in this part?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So just take a short break and come back for 5 minutes. I'll continue the class and remind me to record it again. So the next topic is about how to handle errors that are going to arise when working on VBA macros. So it's quite common to get errors while you're learning, or even for that matter, where even when you're working on a full-fledged project, you might find errors. It's not something strange, but you should know how to handle those errors. So that is the next topic that we are going to learn about. And the same mod, I'll name this mod errors. Okay. So what are errors? What are the different types of errors that we get in VBA, and how to compile a macro to find the errors that we might have, and how to handle the errors? All these things we'll see now. So errors are mistakes done in the macro. So let's say you might have typed something wrong. You must have seen some errors already while working on the VBA macros. So errors can also be something which is going to give you wrong results, not necessarily which is going to stop your macro. Okay, there are some errors which will allow you to run the macro, but they'll not display any error message. But you will not get the desired result. That is also an error. And it could happen because of spelling mistakes, some identifier, you have given some wrong name to an identifier or a variable. You will get this. And most of the errors will stop you in the middle of the execution. So those errors are good errors actually, which you can find out. Errors which will not show up. So that is a difficult part to find out. So the types of errors are syntax errors, logical errors. I'll be giving you examples of each of them. Okay. Syntax errors occur whenever there is something wrong typed in the code. You are not following the format that you have to. Then you will get this syntax error and the code line turns red. So the line of code that you have typed will turn to red color if it is a syntax error. Next is the logical error. This is the difficult one to crack. You will get wrong output, but you don't know where you have gone wrong. You should go through the code and entirely to find out where exactly you have gone wrong. So this logical errors, you have to take care of it carefully. You should be more cautious that you don't have many logical errors in your programs. So that will make you hard to find the mistakes. So you have to keep running through your program many times to find it out. So it doesn't show any error. And it is also difficult to trace it, as I said. And compile errors. So there is another type of error known as compile error. So it occurs while compiling the macro, and it usually happens when some part of the code is missing. Like you have missed an end if, you have missed the next while typing for. These are all come under compile error. And the most common one you all would have seen is the runtime error. It occurs when the macro is executing. At that point of time, the error occurs. So this commonly occurs at the runtime, that is while executing, and it happens because there might be a line of code that you have written where the object is not found. You have named an object wrongly, so something of this type. Then you get this runtime error. So next is error handling. We'll show you through the code only. I'll give you the examples of all those types of errors that you might get. So I'm writing a macro to show you a syntax error. It's a sub syntax error. I'll give this. So over here I'll type int a as integer, and I'll assign a value to it. Int a. Either you could use an input box, or you just give a value over here directly. So let me make a mistake which displays as a syntax error and say int a is less than 50. You see, then or go to is missing. It is a compile error and also a syntax error. A piece of code is missing, so it shows a compile error. And because you are not following the syntax, it also displays in the red color. So it keeps displaying in the red color as long as you correct it. So message box, let's say less than 50. I'll type something like this and end it. So this is an example for the syntax error. See, if you just go and correct it here, it will vanish. So syntax error is displayed when you don't use the format that you have to follow. So if you are not following the format, it is going to throw you a syntax error. The next thing, I'll take the same example. I'll show you compile error. You actually got an instance for both now. Again, let me show you. Sometimes you might have followed the syntax. Let's say you forgot to give this endif. I missed this endif. So when you try to execute it, you'll get a compile error. So you should always look at the description. You also have got another error here, ambiguous name detected. Because I gave same macro names to two different macros. So this I want to change it to compile error. And now if I run it, see, block if without end if. So that is a compile error again. So you should know how to solve these errors. In order to solve it, you should read the description of the error. You will understand it. So most of the times you can solve these errors by yourself. So if it says block if without end if, so you have missed an end if somewhere, or you might have missed typing else if. Just go through the code once again and you will be able to find it out where you have done that mistake. This is compile error. And the next one that I want to show is runtime error. So it says sub runtime error. I want to write a code for this. So here, let's say, let me take the same example. So if the given value is less than 50, let's say, I'll give a sheet which is not there. I'll say sheet 1, range of b5 dot value equals int a. And I'll end it with end if. Syntax, everything is fine. I have used an object name which is not existing in the current workbook. There is no object named sheet 1. So you see, when you run this, shows variable not defined. It assumes there is no variable name here. And suppose I have given something like this. See, it is an integer. I'm trying to give a text. it always gives you run compile error first. So let me change this. So data. See, runtime error 13, and the description is type mismatch. So when do you get this? Whenever, see, whenever you have given a wrong data to the variable which has got a different data type. So the data type of this variable is integer, but you are trying to provide text to it. Or you might also see errors like overflow. So overflow is indicating that you are trying to provide a value which is exceeding its capacity. So I have int a as integer. I'll try to give a value like this, 95,000. See, capacity of integer is only up to 32,767. If you try to run with this, you can see you will get overflow error. It is indicating you are trying to give a bigger value than the variable that the capacity of the variable.
Minutes. Okay. Fine days. Well, okay, that's the end. But Monday, sharp 10:30, we are going to start with practical class. Right? Okay.
Sorry guys. Okay. So now we'll see how to check these logical errors, where you could get the logical errors. I'll give you an example for that also. So logical error. So here we say dim int a as integer, okay, and int I as integer, let's say. So now I'm going to assign a value to this int I, and I'll provide some value like this, so 23, and I'll just say if int a is greater than 20, then message box, just say young or something like this. Else if int a is greater than 50, then just say message box old. I'm just giving a simple example here, and I'll say message box kid. And if, so now if I run this, you must have observed already what mistake I did. I'm assigning a value to this variable and I'm trying to check for int a. This is a logical error. You are missing your logic here. You have done a mistake by choosing int a in your code. So these kind of errors you cannot find out. That's the problem. You have to go through, you have to run through all the lines in the program to make out these logical errors. So it will not throw you any error, but this should not be the result that we want. I know I have assigned a value 23. It should be, so let's say I'll give 34. So it should show me young here. But what is it displaying? It is always giving me kid as a value because it is in the else part. Else part will run when all the other conditions that you have provided is going to evaluate to false. Is it clear? So now if I just correct it to A, I know what answer I should get. That is going to give me the right answer. So this is how you have to find out the errors. So these logical errors, as far as possible, please avoid it and be very careful while writing the piece of code, which kind of variable you are using. That's the reason we ask you to name it properly, so that you will be able to identify which variable is going to store what value. So if you have the naming conventions written properly, so that will actually save you from these logical errors. Next, let's try to understand the error handlers. There are various error handlers available in VBA for us. So on error resume next, on error go to 0, or on error go to a particular label. So let's see where these things will come used to us. So let me give an example for on error resume next. Let's say error type on error resume next. I'll give some short name like this. So here I'm going to take a common code to explain it to you for various errors that we get, and say int number1 as integer and int number2 as integer again. I also declare a variable int result res as integer. So I'll give a line of code which is going to throw an error. I know it is going to throw an error in case my input is wrong. See, when you have an expectation that this might provide an error, if you are able to anticipate an error, so then you are going to use these error handlers, so that it is not going to stop your code at any point of time, and it is also going to help the users identify the errors and correct it. So here I'll give that example. Say on error resume next. So this is used to avoid checking errors. So it is like switch off mode for error checking. So it will not check any errors, and it will allow the code to execute and get ahead with whatever error it might come whatsoever. It is not going to stop your macro. So this is to avoid such errors. So when you know there are some unavoidable circumstances where the error might occur and you don't want your macro to get stopped, then you'll use this on error resume next. And let me give that here. Num1 is equal to input box and say enter n1 value. int n2 is equal to input box enter n2 value. So now I'm trying to, let's say, divide int res is equal to n1 divided by n2. So this is the operation that I want to perform. And sorry, it is int n and int n2. So the next one that I want to do is int n2 is equal to text value. I'll give some text value. See, actually these two have to provide me an error in case I give n2 value as 0. So let me run this. I have provided 34 and n2 value is 0. So if I do this, it should throw me an error because n1 divided by n2 will become 34 by 0. Any number, when it gets divided by 0, it should throw me an error. It did not. And the second one, we know we have declared it as an integer and it doesn't accept any text value, any kind of text. So it should have thrown error over here also. It should have given me type mismatch. Because I used on error resume next, it did not check for any errors and it just blindly let it run. I can show you another example. No errors. So this line will execute now. If I run this, I'll give some value. Okay, I'll give 0 here. It will give me no errors are checked. Now if I didn't use this, if I just comment this line or error on error resume next, we just check and say 54 and 0, immediately it will throw me an error. A runtime error saying division by 0. It was going to check errors. You understood why we use on error resume next, all of you. Are you able to understand the use of error checking in the code?
Yes.
Okay. So now if I have to switch it on again, the error checking has to resume again. In that case, I'll use on error go to 0. See, there is only a particular line where I don't want to check the error, and later it has to check. Then I'll use it in the piece of code like this. Say sub on error go to 0. I'll take the same example. And here, yeah, I have provided on error resume next. And immediately after this division thing, I'm going to say on error go to 0. You see what happens? It will not check the division error, but it is going to check type mismatch error. Let me run this. I'll give value 340. It's a 0. It is giving me type mismatch. It did not give me division by 0 error. It should have thrown an error at this point. Because I gave on error resume next, this piece of code was not checked for errors. As soon as I switched it on again, it's like resetting error checking. So if you say on error go to 0, it will again check for errors. And once it checks, it is going to prompt it for you like this. It's just going to display you the error. So in a piece of code that you're going to write, if you don't want a particular block of code to be tested for errors, you can give it like this: on error resume next, and from where it has to check the errors, just before that line you give on error go to 0. It is like resetting the error check. So is it clear till now? We also have something known as error handlers. That is also available in our VBA code. We'll see how these error handlers can help us in handling the errors that we get in the VBA code. So here I'll use sub on error. This is go to label. I want to set it to a label so that from there the error has the error checking takes place or the error is handled in a particular way. I'll take the same example again. So instead of on error resume next, and say on error go to error handler 1. So this is a label. I am going to set that label and give instructions to handle the error that might occur. And immediately after this, I'll just say exit sub. And the labels have to be provided this way. Just check here. The error handler 1 and colon. This is treated as a label. So it's like a bookmark. Okay, it will directly jump to that particular line of code. Right from here till here. In case of an error, it jumps right from there to this label, and any line of code written after this label will be executed. So it will skip all that is in between. It's not going to execute it in that case. In the same message box, I want to get the error number based on the error that I am going to see. So I'll display the error number in the, to get the number of the error, I'll use error number here. Next, I also want to see the description of the error. So error description. And just say err.description. So it is going to take you there. So next is end sub is already there. So in case of an error, it is going to take you there. So now this time I'm not going to give some wrong values to the numbers. I'll just say 4 and 2. Error number 13, error description is type mismatch. Because I did not give a 0 in the denominator part, you are not getting division by 0. So only the next piece of line is an integer being set to a text. So you are getting type mismatch. So let me give a wrong input in N1 and N2. So then let me show you. I'll give some 12 and divide it by 0. See, you'll get error number 11 and division by 0 error as the description. So whichever error triggers first, that error's number and description is immediately displayed to you. So this is one of the error handlers. And see, for multiple errors, if there are multiple errors, you want to handle it in a different way. In that case, we are going to use on error go to -1. So here we have multiple errors. One is division by 0 and other is type mismatch. And it displayed us only one particular error, though we had two errors here. We want to handle all the errors occurring in the program, then we are using on error go to -1. So let me show you that. The same thing I'm going to take. Here I'll change it to on error, say -1. I can't use minus symbol in the macro name, so I've given -1 in the name there. So here, let's say rest all is same. You're going to take care of the other error also. So I'll just give that. this error handler later. After this, you have to give it, and there is no exit sub here. So I'll remove this. So I'll say on error go to -1. And next, I'll again start the next piece of line. Say on error go to error handler 2. And here I'll give this. And what should be the error handler 2? That will just take care of that part. I want the same lines of code to be executed. And here I'll change the label to error handler 2. I'll add one more line to it. Message box integer doesn't take text values. I just want to give a custom message to the user. And if I run this, in case of a mistake in the first part, you can see it is going to display the error number and the description. So second error again, it is going to display the description. It also gives me the custom message that I gave. Okay, is it clear about the error handlers? Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, these are the objects. ERR is an error object used to get various parts of the error, whether it could be the number of the error or description and such things. So there are a few best practices that you have to follow. So you use on error go to label at the beginning of the code. That's like we have given here. So this is on error go to the label name that I have used here. And using on error resume next for expected errors. Even that is a good practice. You know it is going to give an error, so better use it so that your macro is not interrupted at any point of time. And in this part, using exit sub, see you have used on error go to label. If there is an error, it should execute this. If there is no error, it should exit the sub. If you don't give this, and if there is no error, even in case of that, this will be executed, which is wrong. So you get that. This error handler is useful when the error occurs. If at all there is no error, this should not execute. So I should give exit sub. Exit sub will exit the macro after executing all these lines. And in case of any error that is occurring, the handler should take care of it. Is it clear? And using multiple error handlers to handle various errors in the macro, like we have done in the last example that I gave. So we know there will be different types of errors that could be occurring. For that, you will use multiple error handlers. So is it clear? This chapter, you can ask me if you have any doubts. Is it done? Any answers, please? Are you all clear with it? Able to hear me?
Yes, Vidya.
Okay. So this is it. This was the last session of VBA. So I'll stop here. Let me stop the recording first.